So there's a couple of ways that we can set up Modo Drum in Cakewalk by Bandlab. I'm going to quickly show you the first way. You just want to click on the instruments icon up here, and then in here we could search for Modo. There's Modo Drum, and we'll drag it over into this section here. And it should bring up this options dialog window. If it doesn't, it means you've unchecked that, and you can go into Views, and then go to Synth Rack View. And then in here, you can click this icon and it will bring that up, and you can recheck that if you want this to open every time. So with this dialog open, I want to go to Instrument per Track Output. And then down here, I want to go to, we'll say All Synth Outputs Mono. And we can change this later, so it doesn't really matter. So we'll click on that. And then over here, it might have this checked, max available. You can uncheck that if you want and put in a number there if you know you want 12 different tracks for this, or whatever number of tracks you want, or you can leave it at max available, which I'll do for this. And we would just click OK. And then it's going to load 32 tracks because that's the max available for this instrument. And we can delete some later if we don't use all of them. Now you want to click on this icon here on any of these tracks, and it's going to bring up our interface for the Modo Drum plugin. We can go to Mixer now, and if we play our kick drum, you'll see it's coming out on 2 tracks. This one here is our main stereo output, and we could actually go into the console and mute that if we wanted to. So we'll mute the first one just by bringing the volume all the way down like that. And you can see it's coming out on that one. Now I want to change this to DAW 3/4. Now let's see what happens. Is coming out on this one over here. So this one here is still our stereo output. We'll mute that one. So that's our kick drum. And then we can go here to our snare drum, and we can have that on 5/6 if we want. And you can see they're kind of all over the place. So you'll want to name each track as you go along and assign a drum to each one. Of course, you don't want to miss assigning your overhead and room drums. So you would also set those to your whatever output you want. And you can do that with the effects outputs as well. You want them all sent to these tracks in your DAW. And then if you have some left over, you can delete those tracks. And another thing you can do is also insert a stereo bus, and then we'll call this drum bus. And then we could set the output to the drum bus for all of our tracks. And then that way, all of our drums are going to go into this master drum bus channel here. And maybe we could put a bus compressor and EQ on there, whatever we want to put on our drum bus, we could have that there. And it's easy to control the volume of all your drums with the one fader. So that's kind of one way that we could do it. That's not the way that I typically set up my multi-output drums. So let's load up a new project. Now let's look at how I normally set them up. And we're going to, again, go to that instruments icon there, search for Modo Drum, drag it over here, and we can just kind of forget all about this. We're going to go to Simple Instrument Track, or you can disable this even if you want to. So Simple Instrument Track, click OK. It's inserted one single track with our drum plugin on it. Now what we can do is go into our mixer here, and let's count how many tracks we're going to need. So we're going to need 1, 2, I put all of my toms onto 1, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I typically don't use these, but I'll add them anyway. And then we also want to add one for the overhead, which is 12, the room, 13, and then our effects, which is 14 and 15. So we'll have 15 tracks altogether. Now let's just close this interface for now. And we want to go up to Insert Stereo Bus. And if you don't have your console open up your console and we'll see bus D here is what we just created. That's the stereo bus. We'll rename this to drum bus. Close this down. And now we'll go up to Insert Multiple Tracks. And we want this to be 15. And we want the main destination to be the drum bus. And then down here, we don't want any MIDI tracks, so we'll change that to 0. Click OK. And we just created our 15 tracks here. Now this main one is going to be used as our MIDI track. So that's the track that we'll put the MIDI on, is this main one. So what I want to do now is go into the console, and our first track, which is our MIDI track, I'm going to lower the volume all the way to 0. And we'll close this down again. Now we can go in and name all of these tracks and assign them. So here's our kick drum. We've got no sound right now. Let's change this to DA 3/4 and then go to track 2. We'll call that kick and click these arrows here to expand it. And this is your input. So we want to go to Modo Drum, output 3/4, and you can have it so it's mono. You can choose the right or left. It doesn't really matter there. Or you could have stereo. For our kick drum, we want mono. So I'm just going to click that. Now when we play it, our kick drum's coming out there. Snare drum isn't coming out anywhere yet. So let's minimize that. Next track is our snare. And we'll assign this to 5/6. Go into our input, Modo Drum 5/6. And again, we can choose mono or stereo. I'm going to choose mono for the snare. And you can see they come out on different tracks. And for the toms, I put them all on one track. So let's set these all to 7/8. And of course, you can have them so they're on their individual track if you want. Do whatever works best for you. All right, 7/8. We'll go into our next track here. Toms. And input will be Modo Drum 7/8. And I do stereo for the toms because a lot of times I like to pan them stereo. So I could start this one there, this one maybe here, this one here, that one there. And now when we play, you can hear they're panned according to that way. If I had this as mono, it just kind of sounds like quieter and then a bit louder. It doesn't give you that stereo effect. So we'll switch that back to stereo. And you would just continue to do this for all of your outputs on here. Make sure you get your overheads and your rooms because you want those in there. And then once you get that all completed, what you can do is go in, you can add different effects to your kick, your snare, your toms. You can adjust the levels so things match up and show you where you'll put your MIDI. So we'll just go get a groove. So we'll just put our MIDI on that first track that we lowered the volume all the way down. And the MIDI is going to play on there. Let's play this back. And you can see our drums are all outputting where they're supposed to. I didn't set up all of the drums the way we should. And they're being routed to this master drum bus over here. And this is going to give you a lot more control over your drum sound compared to just having the drums output to 2 tracks. And you would have to do all the editing within the instrument itself, which you can do with Modo Drum if you really want to. But I prefer to do this because now I can bring in VST plugins or use the Pro Channel Strip on just the kick or the snare, the toms, the hi-hats, whatever I want to do. Way more control over your drums. And if you think Modo Drum's very cool, check out the free Modo Bass from IK Multimedia by clicking the video on the screen. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. For Audio Tech TV, I'm Zane. Keep creating, and we'll talk soon.